Hi everyone, it has been a long time since I've done my last tutorial. I'm so sorry. It has been a bit of a crazy couple of months. So I know that I've mentioned this probably a couple of times, but I'm working on a really exciting project at the minute, which is wrapping up about now, but it means that I've had to work on about 350 paintings in about 2 months. So it has been a little bit manic trying to obviously run my business, but also do this other project in my spare time. Yeah, it's been a bit of a journey, but we're nearly there. So which means I can hopefully start dedicating more time to actually doing stuff on Instagram and in here, like on here as well. Yeah, so fingers crossed. I've also been really ill. So last month, so back in June, I got the flu. Luckily not COVID. I got the flu, but it has meant that I've had a cough for about 5 weeks. Luckily it is kind of going now, but I've got water on hand just in case, but if I start coughing, that's why. But today I really want to show you how to paint a painting that I did last year during lockdown, I think. It was a painting I didn't really know how it was going to turn out. I wanted to do something kind of simplified, and it turned out to be one of my most popular paintings that I've done so far. It is this one here. I don't know if you can see very well. It's based on a photo. I can try and find the reference photo I used, but it's a photo that I found from Unsplash, so it's royalty free, so if you want to use that for your own studies you can. And I've used, I think it was acrylic gouache for the background for this, which we'll be using today, to build up the layers, and then it's these beautiful textured bright green vibrant layers of leaves over the top. So yeah, let's get started. Before I get started, I just want to talk a little bit about my nails. I'm really sorry about the state of my hands, but we have kind of been in and out of isolation here in the UK. So my nail artist and I have not been able to meet up for a while, as you can tell. Anyway, first things first, paper that I'm going to be using today is the same I think that we used in the last one, and that is the Strathmore mixed media paper. It's a gummed pad. The cover has fallen off this. I've already gone ahead and masked up my sheet of paper. I always use frog tape, just a bit really basic frog tape. I don't know what kind of one. Oh, it's a delicate surface version, which is usually this yellow version. I don't often use general masking tape because I find it pulls the paper, but this is actually quite, if I can show you, it's quite delicate on there, so that's my favourite one to use. I've got a couple of paints, not sure if we're going to be using all of these yet because I sort of relearn as I go. The Turner acrylic gouache in olive green, we've got a jet black, and then we also have the permanent yellow green as well, which is this lovely lime green. I also have a general white gouache. This isn't acrylic gouache, it's just normal gouache. And then I've got a sap green Winsor & Newton and a primary yellow, just in case. For my paint palette, I'm using this transparent travel sized one. It normally comes in a case. I've just pulled it out. Ignore this side of the palette. I was actually doing some painting earlier today, so that's just left over from that. We'll be using this side. Paintbrush wise, I've got a general flat edge brush for doing the background. Anything will be fine for that as long as it's big enough. And I've got a tapered brush here for the leaves. This is a size 4. Size 4. Also got my general water palette and then some tissue just to dry my brushes off as well. So the first thing we're going to do is mix up the colours for our background, and I'm going to block out the full background, which is why I haven't drawn my design in pencil. We're just going to kind of wing it today and see how it goes. Great way to do a tutorial, Hannah. I don't know how much of this we're going to need. I'm going to put enough on because we're going to be using more olive green anyway, so it doesn't matter about wastage. So I'm just going to damp my brush a little bit, grab some of that olive green and a minuscule amount of black, and we just want to mix a really rich dark background. Just using my original painting as reference here, and I've actually really quite dark. It looks like I've used fully black, but I don't remember I doing that. I remember having green in there. So, and one thing to pay attention with gouache is that the dark colours dry darker than they look when they're wet, and the light colours tend to dry lighter. So that's one thing to sort of look out for. So you always want to go a slightly shade lighter than what you are mixing when it's a dark colour, if that makes sense. That looks alright, I think. It looks a bit murky. I'm going to add a little more black. Okay, I think that'll do. And we're just going to brush that on your paper. You can overlap that masking tape as well. I like my backgrounds to be quite thick. Always the case, isn't it? I run out of paint. So the difference between acrylic gouache and normal gouache is that acrylic gouache behaves, as you would guess, a little bit more like acrylic paint, in that it can't be reactivated like normal gouache can. So when you're painting layers over it, it doesn't reactivate, which is really useful for when you're blocking out big sort of backgrounds like this. Let's water that down a little bit. It's quite a nice colour actually. I'm not particularly precious with my backgrounds. You can be as neat or as rough as you like. If you think it's looking a little bit too thick, add a bit more water into your paint mix and just sort of brush that over. How's that looking? Not bad. Right, because that's quite a lot of paint there, I'm going to set that aside and wait for it to dry for maybe 5 minutes, and then we'll come back to it. So this should be dry now, or dry enough. So I'm going to go ahead and start mixing the colours for my first layer of leaves. So as you can see here, the first layers we're going to be working on are these sort of light olive green leaves, and then we're going to work loads of layers on top of that. So let's start by washing my brush, and we're going to grab some of the olive green acrylic gouache that we used before. I'm going to add a little bit of that black in there. It's hard to tell kind of how it's going to come out without being able to test it on this colour, but let's see, shall we? Let's just give it a go. Okay, so I've got some leaves down here. This brush is kind of tapered, so actually it makes painting leaves very easily. I can basically just dab it like that. And we're going to sort of, the lighter and shorter the brush strokes you want, you just want to dab the tip. Let's turn this sideways so I can get better motion. And then of course, if you want to go back into it once it's drying and just neaten those up, then you can. I quite like it just like that. I'm not sure what the colour's going to be like. Again, I can't really tell what that colour's going to look like until it's dry. But let's just keep working on a few layers, shall we? So this one here, I'm actually going to drag off here. Again, they don't have to be perfect because it's more of a stylized painting rather than a really realistic piece of work. It's going to be quite tricky to get. I want to do one that's kind of upside down here. Let's twist my paper upside down. I'm going to turn this upside down as well because I'm going to work on the other side. It's actually easier. You might find it's easier to get these little sort of paint dabs with your brush if you're working in the direction that the leaves are going in. So here, I'm gonna again, you don't have to be really precious with it, because we can go in and sort of change how the leaves are sort of moving as well. We can make them look a little bit more flowy. If you've got a brush which doesn't create this sort of effect, you can just draw them manually. You can just draw sort of little teardrop shapes like this and then fill them in. It's not quite as quick, but it works just as well. So I'm starting to add a little bit of blue into my olive green because I want a bit of a colder colour than the olive I've been working with. And I'm just going to continue with what I was doing. You can also use the really pointed end of your brush to do little teeny strands of leaves as well. I'm going to do a couple around here. As you can see on my original one, I built a lot of branches in the center here. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of start working out where those are going to go. Again, we can always paint over these in lighter colors, but I'm just going to block out where I think these are going to sit. so I think we're kind of good for those layers. Originally I thought that was going to be my darkest layer, but actually I want something a little bit darker in there as well, so I'm going to grab my olive green and a little bit of black. We don't want to make something as dark as the background, but we want something that's going to be darker than this bluey olive that we've made. Let's try that. A bit darker. Yeah, that's looking quite good. That's just going to give a little bit more depth. It is really totally up to you how you work these. As you can see, I'm just sort of spinning my paper around and adding branches where I think they should go. There's not really an awful lot of rhyme or reason to this, other than I want things clustered in certain ways. I still want quite a lot of negative space in the background to be peeking through. I just want to start sort of building more depth where I can. Again, these don't have to be perfect leaves. They don't even really have to look like what you imagine leaves to be. Now we're going to work on the next layer. So I think I'm going to go with a bit of sap green. I'm not really sure how this is going to work yet. Let's just grab some white. Let's just put a load of colours on my palette and then just see what sort of happens. I did my original one of these so long ago that I can't remember exactly what colours I used, so this is going to be a bit of a guessing game. But let's see. So let's grab some sap green, a little bit of olive green because we don't want it to be too bright. It's not going to be in keeping with the rest of the painting. I like these sort of cooler tones of green, so let's grab some blue. That could work. So I'll try. Bit of white, a bit more sap green. Again, so I'm just painting over some of these lighter ones I did earlier that I know I want to have a bit brighter. And now I'm just going to use that same shade, and I'm going to do the same as what I've been doing so far and just sort of build those layers. So that's that third layer done. And then I think we're probably going to do 2 more layers. So this is where I'm going to go with my permanent yellow green, which is this lovely lime colour. It's a bit dry, there we go. This one I'm going to use straight out the tube. I don't think I'm going to add any white to it just yet. I'm just going to water it down. It's such a vibrant, beautiful colour. And I'm going to again just work into some of these that we've already got on the page. It's actually very vibrant. Let's add a bit of sap green into there just to make it look less pop of green. Maybe a blend of the two. It's all a bit of a trial and error really with mixing colours and painting. It just sort of, for me anyway, I don't know if it's the same for others, but for me I never seem to mix the same colour twice. I think that's how I get quite a lot of depth in my paintings usually, is that, you know, I end up using so many different colours just because purely because I've forgotten how to mix the colour I just mixed. And I'm going to go into some of these others that I've mixed and just add a little bit of this brighter green into the tips of the leaves, as if the sun's just hitting those top few leaves. And then let's create some new branches here. Okay, now I'm going to take some white, add that into the same colour that made a little bit more sap green. Obviously this isn't the neatest painting ever, but that's okay. There are occasionally times where I'll do a piece of work and it's not my usual style in that it's meticulously neat, which is what I usually do, but I actually really love working in this way. Sometimes it's just really freeing and you get so much more movement. You can really play with your brush strokes. Now I'm just going to work on the last layer, and the last layer is going to be very light. I'm going to add loads of white into this green layer here. And I'm just going to use this to highlight a very few leaves. So let's pop a few of these up here. You can actually use your brush to just paint the tips of these leaves as well. That's a really nice effect. I'll show you down here as well, so you just get your brush and just dab it over the very top of your leaves. Okay, so I think that's probably the most I'm going to do on this one. So I'm going to start peeling back the tape on the edges. That off, and there we go. I've got a bit of green paint there because I've just got some on my hand, but that is pretty much how, let's bend it, it's quite thick, so actually it's bent the paper a little bit, but that's how the final piece looks. This one is so flexible that you can really play around with the composition of this. You don't have to have the leaves in the same place that I put them. You can really make it your own, so you could have leaves just on the outside, you can have just little bunches of leaves in the corners, you can have more or less negative space, you can have it covering the whole piece. It's really up to you. It's so flexible, it's so quick, and I think it's actually really striking with all the different layers and the different tones of green as well. I would love to know if you give this one a try yourselves, and let me know if you try a different variation. It's such an easy one, and you can really sort of play around with it as much as you like. The brush strokes can kind of be played around with as well, so it's a really good way of learning exactly how to use your brushes in really interesting ways. So yeah, I hope this tutorial was helpful. Let me know how it was. And I'll be back again, hopefully with another one in a couple of weeks. Hopefully not as long as last time.